I did it every year, every other year. People would say, well, you expect too much out of your kids. And I said, yeah. Well, what are you going to do if you get to the national tournament? And if you beat this kid at 2 o'clock, you get the other kid at 8 o'clock tonight.
Sure.
It could be from 2 Oklahoma schools. And so I just wanted them to feel like they'd been through everything by the time they got to the nationals. Mm-hmm. And my greatest athletic thrill of all of them, besides winning the nationals in '67, was when Jeff Smith pinned Dave Porter of Michigan in our dual meet, which was unheard of, even unheard of to me, and no one expected that. And Smith beat him again for the Big Ten championship, and they put them both in the same bracket, and he lost to Porter in the national tournament that year. So, but they can't take those memories away.
No,
I still have a huge picture up in the basement of this happening, and underneath it is a sign, it doesn't get any better than this. Porter was down there not too long ago and saw that, and he says, I want you to know that I wasn't pinned. I said, well, you better tell the referee then. Well, we're good friends.
We watch those Michigan State, Michigan wrestling matches these days, and the crowd certainly gets into it, and it sounds like it was the same in the 60s.
It was a tough one this year.
Yes, it was.
Oh, boy.
It was a good one.
That and the Iowa match.
Yes.
I don't know that any dual meet ever got any more exciting.
Well, we know, Coach, you come back to all the matches still, and and you come around and see the guys and see the team, and everyone appreciates that. Let's talk about your 1967 run, the year that the team won the national championship. How about before the season? What kind of expectations did you come in with?
Well, we won the Big Ten championship from 66 to 72, 7 consecutive years. And I found out that we're the only sport at Michigan State that ever did that. Mm-hmm. So the kids did a great job. But when we went to the Nationals at Kent State, I knew we had a chance. And, but what I didn't know was that we had the national championship sacked up Friday night and didn't have to win a match Saturday to win it. I'm glad I didn't know that, because I would have let down and might have let some youngster down by not breathing on him too hard. But we had a fantastic showing with the kids down there. Gee whiz. I owe so many of them so much. And the Don Beams and the Dale Andersons and the George Radmans and the Dale Carrs, and those kids were just unbelievable athletes. And I was just fortunate to get them because they were after by a lot of people.
And they obviously performed to their potential that weekend. Can you recall anyone who had a tournament even beyond what your expectations were that maybe brought your score, elevated your score even more than you would have thought? Or?
Well, and we had a youngster from Ypsilanti, African-American kid by the name of Mike Bradley.
Okay.
And he got clear to the finals and lost to just a horse from Oklahoma State that really he didn't have a chance with. But here he bloomed through that and came on through, and Mike Bradley was 3-time Big Ten champion.
Okay.
And, it's like anything. If you hang around long enough, they'll forget you. And that's what happened, I think, with a lot of these kids, that only the older fans remember their names. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like being president,
Now, you said that Biggie, when you came back from your first Big Ten title, knocked a wall down for you. What was waiting for you when you came back from the national championship? Anything at all?
Yeah, I just tell you, it was just fantastic, because a lot of people don't know this. We were the first Big Ten team to win the NCAA in wrestling. And then someone will say, well, now wait a minute, Indiana won it in '32. No, they didn't, because in 1931, the coaches voted not to give a national championship the next year. So it was an unofficial title. We were the first ones to win an official NCAA title in wrestling. Okay. And I'm sure Indiana doesn't like to hear that, but it's the truth.
Well, Michigan State was the first to do many things in the sport of wrestling, in terms of, I think, a 4-time finalist from the Big Ten.
Yes, and when Tom Malkovich,
mm-hmm.
and Pat Malkovich was a 4-time finalist in the NCAA,
Okay.
And he won it twice, and he lost twice.
Okay.
Tom was a 4-time Big Ten
Ten
champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the brothers act from Maple Heights, Ohio. They were fantastic athletes. There's a good story that goes with that, because I recruited Greg Johnson, and he came out of Lansing, and he was the first 3-time NCAA champion from any Big Ten school. Well, when he was getting ready to go for his 3rd title, I had recruited Pat Melkovich. And Melkovich was just pounding him as a freshman in the room one day, and Greg jerked off his helmet and threw it against the wall. And I went over to him, I said, "What's wrong with you?" And he said, "How do you expect me to win my 3rd national championship when I can't even whip this freshman?" I said, "You should thank God, son." He said, "For what?" I said, "That he's not in your weight class." Well, he thought a while, put on his helmet, and went right back after after Milkovich then.
So maybe they made each other even a little better after that.
Oh yeah, it was a dogfight anytime they got together. Milkovich was tall and lean, and Greg was, he was very short.
Okay.
But length is strength when everything else is even.
Now, Pat came back to coach with you, didn't he?
Yes, yes. I retired. I had a little physical problem. Ended up down in Sparrow, and I thought, well, maybe I better stop and smell the roses. And so I recommended Pat to get my job, but the administration had different ideas, and they hired a young man from Washington State, was coaching up there by the name of Parker, and then he came in and then left a few years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you also had another legendary wrestler as an assistant coach, in Stan Desick.
Stan Desick, he was a good one, and so he went into stocks and bonds. He made the right decision. He lives down in Atlanta now, and the young man has done well financially, and also has stuck with wrestling and is helping on an international basis.
And president of USA Wrestling as we speak.
Right.
So there are Spartans out there everywhere.
Everywhere you
to
look.
give back to the sport. As we talked earlier, it was mentioned that many of the names that we've come across, Finley Collins, yourself, Stan, Pat, these are all people who are in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Yes.
In Stillwater.
Yes, and they're good ones. I tell you, they deserve to be in there. I'm a little disappointed that they haven't put Greg Johnson in there yet, but I'm sure he will be, because with that honor behind him, he should be in there, and also Michigan State's Hall of Fame.
Sure, and again, like you said, he was the first 3-time champion from the Big Ten.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And
well, a lot of people today might not, and a lot of people today are too young, actually, to know all of
That's
these
true.
names and remember these folks.
I never will forget when I was talking with Myron Roderick after he'd been out of coaching for a while. He's one of the great coaches and still has a string of 89 victories without a defeat. No one's beaten that, even Gable. And anyway, I never will forget when this young man was standing there next to us, and someone introduced him to another guy as Myron Roderick, and this young kid says, "Who's Myron Roderick?" And it really hurt him, because the kid didn't know.
Here's Myron. He's such a
So
legend.
there's egotism with those champions. Myron was 3-time NCAA champion also, and then coach at Oklahoma State.
And I know that he has a role with the Hall of Fame. Is he
Oh,
the
yeah.
director, or he has?
Oh yeah,
I know he
he's the president of director of the Hall of Fame. Has done a fantastic job, and it's quite a museum to go down to Stillwater. Right next to the stadium is the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, and it goes from the year 1 right on up to now, and it's well worth a visit to any wrestling fan that would want to see the history of their sport.
Okay, and I'll see lots of Spartan faces as they walk
Yeah.
through there, perhaps.
Yeah, there's a few in there.
All right. Hey, Coach, we want to talk a little bit about the recruiting when you were coaching at Michigan State. Could you tell us about some of the big ones you landed, and maybe a couple that got away?
Well, the biggest one that got away was, of course, Dave Porter. And I was lucky enough to fly to California and recruit a kid that beat him, Jeff Smith. And then, of course, I recruited and signed Dale Anderson. And then Dale Anderson jumped scholarships, or jumped contracts and went to Iowa State. I was, we had nothing between us then. It wasn't like going to another Big Ten school, which he couldn't have done and got a scholarship. But he went outside in the Big 8. And then he got down there, and after he'd been wrestling a while, he and Gable were high school teammates. And after he was down there for a while, the coach came around to him and said, I can't keep you on full scholarship next semester. Said, I need the money for a kid coming in. Well, Dale Anderson called me and said, can I still come to Michigan State? I said, yeah, you can still come, but I said, you can't get a scholarship for a year. He said, all right, I'm coming. And he quit Iowa State, and he came with us. And I'll tell you, that's the biggest mistake the Iowa State coach ever made, because Dale Anderson was just a fantastic athlete. He's a lawyer now and involved in different litigations, I suppose, and especially the one with the Title IX. And the funniest, I guess to me, the funniest recruiting story was Jeff Smith.
Okay.
I felt like I was losing him, and he was junior college, and I was only going to get him for 2 years. And I felt like he was going to go somewhere else, and I thought, well, I might as well pull a joke on him and see how he can take it. So I told him that when I was coming to his house, I picked up this hitchhiker, and his parents were watching all of this too, and they were from Oklahoma. And so I said, I was driving along the road there, coming to your house, and the guy was hitchhiking, so I picked him up, and I said, we'd just driven a little ways, and he reached over and put his hand on my knee, and I pulled the car off the road, and I said, that's it, just get out. And so he got out and reached in his pocket, pulled out an aerosol can, and sprayed me with the stuff and said, you think you're so smart, in another hour or two, you'll be just like me, and slammed the door and walked off. And I tell you what, my clothes smell, what does that smell like to you? And Jeff reached over to smell of it, and I kissed him on the forehead, and he turned a beet red, and his parents just died laughing. And he said, that settles it. I'm coming to Michigan State. If it takes 2 years, I'll get even with you.